comfortable position, lead on your back to start. And you can take up any shape that you wish to onto the mat. So whether you want to have the knees bent, the soles of the feet resting flat, or you might choose to elongate the legs, completely relaxing them down a little bit wider than the hips. Optional, but if you want to take more release into your hips to begin with, then you can have the knees bent, allow the knees to fall out towards the side, so opening into the hips, finding Supta Baddha Konasana, your reclined bound angle pose or butterfly legs. So just coming to adopt that position that feels really comfortable for you to start your practice today. Options to have the hands resting by your side, palms facing up towards the ceiling. Or you might choose to have the hands resting on your tummy, noticing the rise and fall of your breath. Closing down the eyes, softening the gaze, and starting to drown all your awareness more internally here. Notice how you're feeling on a physical level this evening. And come to notice all the points of contact of your body onto your mat. As much as you can, try to soften the body. So sinking the shoulders into the ground. Notice that support of the lower back onto your mat. There's length through the back of the neck. The back of the head rests heavy. Soften the facial muscles. Come to relax the tongue away from the top of the mouth, so relaxing into the jaw. And just start to find your breath here, connecting with the breath. Inhaling through the nose, sending the breath into the chest. Feel that expansion in the rib cage as you breathe into the front, the back, the sides of the ribs, maximum inflation. Inhaling, the belly rises. Exhaling, the tummy softens, the rib cage relaxes. Breathing out either through the mouth, taking a sigh perhaps. Or you might choose to breathe out through the nose. So inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose. Finding your yogic breath. So just taking that in your own time. Envisioning that pathway of breath as it descends all the way down to the bases of the lungs. The diaphragm contracts, the belly rises. Exhaling, tummy softens, ribcage relaxes. So just staying mindful of the breath here. And perhaps if you're feeling a little bit tired today, if you're carrying any fatigue, then really use your inhalation to uplift your energy, bring that new energy into the body, your vitality. Or if you feel you need to relax this evening, then use your exhalation to ground you, to release onto your mat. Find that calming exhalation. So just a few more rounds of breath here in your own time. Try to stay mindful of this breath throughout your practice. So as we slightly calm the practice this evening, you can really ensure that you're maintaining that even inhalation and that even exhalation. Let's take 2 more rounds of breath in your own time. So long, slow inhale. And that long, full exhale, allowing the body to soften, to sink, to surrender onto your mat. And then when you come to the end of the breath and there's no rush at all, that you might start to wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes, bring some energy into the body. And if they're not already there, let's bend the knees, have the feet resting flat onto the ground. And then start to hover those feet, the knees in towards the chest, wrapping the arms around the shin. finding this really nice warm embrace. It might feel good here to take a rock and a sway from side to side. Maybe take some rotation into the hips, into the knees, releasing that lower back, massaging out the lower spine into the mat. Just notice here that full grounding of the back onto your mat. So notice the shoulder blades are heavy, they're resting onto the ground. Feel that lower spine just moving maybe from side to side, massaging out the lower back. And just taking a moment here to welcome in any movement that you wish to. And then coming to find stillness here. On your next inhale, lift the chest, the chin, the shoulders up towards the knees. So finding this full hug of the knees, rounding into the back, opening into the back body, those tiny joints of the spine. As you exhale, release the shoulders down, the head all the way towards the ground. Now keep the right knee drawn in towards the chest, but allow your left leg to relax out long onto your mat. And it might be that you bring your hands onto the shin, maybe interlacing the fingers. And just think about really squeezing that right knee in towards you. If you wish to, you can introduce some movement here, so maybe rocking that knee from side to side. You might want to take some rotation into the hip joint again, so massaging out the back of the pelvis here onto the ground on that right side. Just oiling the joint, creating some space into that right hip as we begin. And then just coming to find some stillness here again. So squeeze that right knee in towards you tightly. And then as you feel ready to, come to find your belt that hopefully you have by your side. And just place that belt underneath the right forefoot, so the top of the foot. Now as you inhale here, see about straightening that right leg up towards the ceiling. If you don't have a belt available, then just place your hands behind the back of the leg. But if you do have that belt, see about straightening the knee here as much as you can. Even if you lose some height in the movement, try to keep the knee as straight as you possibly can. Flex into the ankle here, so the heel lifts, the toes draw towards you. And we're just starting to really feel that release into the hamstring, into the calf muscles. Now, although the leg is lifted, try to soften the shoulders down again, so releasing the upper back into your mat. The left leg is long, but try to activate through that left leg as it rests down onto the ground. So flex the ankle on that left foot as well, activating all those tiny muscles of the foot. Pause for a moment here and use your exhale breath to release into this posture. So exhaling, maybe seeing if you can get any more purchase on this movement. Holding, pausing for a moment. Take one last breath, full inhale, long exhale. And now this time come to take hold of the band with the right hand. So it's the same hand that's taking hold of the belt, the same hand as the leg. Now bring your left hand over to the top of the left hip just to make sure that there's no movement into the pelvis. On your next inhale, see if you can float the right leg out to the right side, so opening up the hip. Now that right leg draws out, but we're just checking in that we're not lifting the left hip or pelvis at all. So really soften that left hip down. And as well as taking the right leg out to the side, see if you can slightly draw the right leg up towards you. So lifting the heel slightly to really feel this strong release onto the inside of the right leg. Now, if you don't have a belt available, just use your right hand onto the inside of the right leg to just draw that right leg down. Pause for a moment here, so still make sure you're even through the shoulder blades. Using your breath, so exhaling, releasing a little bit more if you can. This is a strong one into the adductor muscles, the muscles on the inside of the leg here. Now take one last round of breath, inhaling deeply. As you exhale, lift that right leg back through center. This time take hold of the belt with the left hand now. And then on your next inhale, take the leg across the body, so over to the left side this time, coming to feel a strong release on the outer hip. This is a really strong one. It gets into our ITB that runs down the outside of the leg. It also gets into the outside of the hip, which are muscles that we often don't stretch. So that leg draws across the body. Now, equally, if you don't have a belt, then just use your left hand to try and pull that leg over. And if you wish to here, you can also take your gaze over the opposite shoulder. Now, as well as taking that leg across, see if you can lift the heel slightly. So really feeling that strong release into the leg, using that exhale breath and focusing on the breath to try to take that awareness away from this really deep stretch. Take one last inhale. Exhale, float that leg back to center. Now this time, take hold of the belt with both hands. The leg is still lifted. Last one here on your inhale. Let's see about lifting the head, the chest, the shoulders, coming forwards into Supta Padangusthasana, which is your reclined head to knee pose. So we're lifting the chest. We're long into the back of the leg. Pausing for a moment here, so using your breath, long inhale. And then as you exhale, release the head, the shoulders down. Softly bend that right knee and release the right leg onto the ground. Give those legs a really good shake out. Just notice here that that right leg should feel really light now. And you might be able to notice that it feels a little bit more tense into the left side. So this time, just come to squeeze the left knee in towards your chest to begin with. So again, placing the hands onto the shin pads, maybe interlacing the fingers. And just start to welcome in some movement to that left hip joint. So rocking that knee from side to side. You might take some rotations into the hip. Notice that massaging sensation of the back of the pelvis onto the mat. Oiling out the joint here. And then just coming to find some stillness. So hugging, squeezing the knee in deeply towards you. Now let's take hold of the band. Again, place that band underneath the forefoot, now on the left side. On an inhalation, straighten the leg up towards the ceiling, so find that length into the back of the leg. And we're just going to find that long hamstring stretch. So just to begin with, get used to having that leg lifted, trying to straighten out the knee. Even if you compromise some of the lift here, make sure that the knee is as straight as it possibly can be. Relax the shoulders down. Feel that full connection of the back onto the mat. Using the exhale to maybe get a little bit more purchase into this pose, lifting the leg towards you. Flexing both ankles here, so that left leg is lifted. The heel lifts towards the ceiling, the toes come towards you, really active into the ankle. And although the right leg is long, try to firm up into the leg muscle slightly, flexing the ankle on the right side as well. Now just hold for one more breath here. Long inhale, long exhale. And then take hold of that belt with the left hand now. So left hand onto the belt. On your next inhalation, let's float the leg open to the left side. The right hand can always come onto the hip to make sure there's no rotation into the pelvis. And we're just allowing that left leg to draw over and out to the side, that left side. Now again, just try to make sure you're not lifting the hip or the pelvis in the right here. So using a hand to maybe press that hip down. And as well as taking the leg to the side, just lift the heel slightly. So really noticing that strong stretch into the inside of the leg. Relax the shoulders. Make sure you're not bunching the shoulders up towards the ears. Full inhale. On your next exhale, float that leg up to the center again. This time, take hold of the belt with the right hand, so opposite hand. Again, on your inhale, let's take the leg over towards the right side this time, so across the body. Finding that stretch and release into the outside of the left hip, down the outside of the left leg. If you wish to, you can take the gaze over the left shoulder, over the opposite shoulder. Still try to make sure you're lifting the heel, as well as taking that leg across. Holding here for just a moment. Using your breath. Inhale deeply. Exhale, float that leg back through center. Now this time, hold on to the belt with both hands. On your next inhale, we're going to see about lifting the head, the chest, the shoulders towards the knee. So Supta Padangusthasana, your reclined head to knee pose. Lifting the chest as high as you possibly can here. And you might notice that stretch a little bit higher up into the leg. Take one last inhale. Exhale, release the head, the shoulders down. And then softly bend that left knee, release that left leg onto the ground and just give both legs a really good shake off here onto the mat. So hopefully they're feeling really light now. Now from here, let's bend the knees, have the feet resting flat onto the ground and just walk the heels in towards you so you can almost tickle the backs of the heels with the fingertips. The feet are hip distance. Coming through a few rounds of bridge. So on your inhalation, just tuck the tailbone under slightly, compressing lower spine into the ground. And then see about lifting the lower back, the middle back, the upper back, until you come into that full shoulder bridge position, the hips are lifted high. Make sure you're even through the pelvis here, press into the heels. Find that engagement into the tummy muscles, that engagement into the glutes. As you exhale, release the upper back, the middle back, the lower back, all the way down towards the ground. So taking that in your own time, inhaling, we lift the back one section at a time, almost feeling this wave of energy through the back body. At the top of the movement, press into the heels, notice that strength into the glutes, into the core. And then exhaling, releasing one section of the back to the ground at a time. So working through that in your own time, but if you wish to now, you can add some arm movement in as well. So taking those arms overhead as you lift the hips. And then exhaling to release the arms down and release the hips down. So inhaling, we lift, and exhaling, we lower. Just make sure that the knees are pointed forwards here. So notice if you're taking those knees out to the side or if you're dropping those knees in too much to the midline, try to make sure those knees are directly pointing towards that top edge of the mat. Let's just go for 2 more rounds here in your own time. Inhaling, exhaling, moving with the breath. And then when you get to your last round, we're going to leave with the hips lifted and those arms behind. Now from here in our bridge position, let's see about bringing the hands behind the back, interlacing the fingers, the palms come to meet. Straighten through the elbows and just see if you can start to draw the shoulders down here to feel a release into the neck muscles. The shoulder blades start to draw together, they start to move together. There's openness into the chest, into the heart space. And you might see if you can find a tiny bit more of a back bend. So gently coming into this micro extension of the spine, press into the heels here. Really notice the back strength and notice the glutes engaging strongly. Take one last inhale. Exhale, release the hands, release the hips all the way down and just bring those knees in towards the chest. Hugging, squeezing those knees in towards you. Okay. So we're going to make our way into seated here, but let's do so by taking a rock and a roll through the spine. So you can bring the hands behind the backs of the legs here in your own time, inhaling onto shoulders, exhaling onto hips. Maybe just taking that movement a few times, so bringing a little bit more life and energy into the body now, creating some heat, some chi. You might see how far you can take those legs overhead. And maybe you can take a little hover as you come forwards onto the mat, so the feet hover away from the ground as you come towards the top of the mat. A couple more times in your own time. On your last one, coming to the top of the mat, and just see if you can keep those feet lifted as you come to the end. So just lifting the feet, making your way to the top of the mat. And if the feet aren't lifted, just come to adopt this position here. Now make sure you're tall through the spine, so lifting crown of the head up towards the ceiling, shoulders drop away from the ears, trying to extract the chest away from the hip points, shoulders back and down. Now if it feels okay to do so, let's lift the feet a little bit higher so they come in line with the knees, so finding our boat pose, Navasana. Pausing for a moment here, just coming to find that stability in this pose, use your tummy muscles. And then maybe you explore releasing those arms in line with the shoulders, so full variation of your boat Navasana. Pausing for a moment here, still make sure you're lifting that chest forwards. Crown of the head lifts tall. And if you wish to, on an inhale, you might see if you can find more length through the spine by stretching arms up high towards the ceiling. Exhale, arms come back in line with the shoulders, pausing here. And then one more time, inhaling as we lift. So find that length, really stretch and open into the fingertips. Exhale, hands back in line with the shoulders. Release the feet down. And then just make your way into a tabletop position. So 4-point kneeling here, hands are directly under the shoulders, the knees are directly under the hips. Spread and open into the fingertips. So find that strong connection of the hands onto the mat. And then just welcome in a few rounds of cat-cow in your own time. So inhaling, lifting the pelvis, feel that rippling through the spine as you look up. And then exhaling, we round into the back, the tailbone tucks under and the gaze is below. So again, just linking that movement with the breath. Noticing how your spine feels this evening. As you inhale to lift, notice the joints of the spine closing, the shoulders moving together. As you exhale, you're opening into the spine, opening between the shoulders, that gaze is below. So just a couple more rounds here in your own time, inhaling, exhaling, flowing through the movement, finding that fluidity. And then as you feel ready to, start to come to a neutral spine here. So finding your tabletop, but making sure you're not too extended, you're not too rounded. So really neutralizing into the lower back, finding that flat back position. Now I would encourage you to really spread and open into the hands if they're not already. So really firming down onto the ground. Tuck the toes under, notice that stretch into the bases of the feet. On your next inhale, lift and hover the knees just a couple of inches away from the mat. So coming to work on this spinal strength, core strength. The gaze is down, so really long in all components of the spine. Feeling that length from the tip of the tailbone to the top of the head, root to crown. Pausing for a breath, one more inhale here. And then as you exhale, float those hips up high into your first downward facing dog. So just making your way into that downward facing, and it might feel nice here to introduce some movement. So bending a knee, lifting a heel, pedaling out the legs, wiggling off the hips, shaking the head. Don't worry too much about how this looks, but just tuning into the body, see how it feels this evening and moving in any way that you'd like to. So finding that intention behind the movement, this mindful movement, it's deliberate, it's considered. And then as you feel ready, and there's no rush at all, but come to make your way into stillness in that downward facing. Just check in with your alignment, so hands a little bit wider than the shoulders, the feet at hip distance. Really trying to descend that chest between the arms, so finding that maximum extension, that elongation through the back. Soften the knees slightly, lifting the heels should you need to. Just noticing if you're crunching into the lower spine, trying to straighten that out by bending the knees slightly. And the gaze is behind here, so anywhere between the knees and the navel. Just taking one full round of breath, so inhaling deeply, exhaling fully in that downward facing. And then on your next inhale, come to walk the hands back towards the feet at the back of the mat. Exhale, find your forward fold, your first forward fold. So bend into the knees generously, relax the arms. If you wish to here, you can bend elbows, take hold of opposite elbow. Just introducing that rock and sway from side to side. Maybe you want to place the hands behind the back of the head, interlacing the fingers, so really allowing that head to hang. Ironing out the back of the neck, so making sure the neck is completely relaxed. Again, just finding those gentle movements here, and if it feels particularly tight in any direction, then maybe just holding that stretch there for a second, so allowing that tension to ease. Notice how this feels into the lower back, into the backs of the legs, the hamstrings, hopefully a little bit more relaxed now that we've stretched off those hamstrings to begin. Make sure you're even through the feet, so you can feel the heel, the forefoot, the toes firm onto the ground. Take one more breath here, so inhaling, exhaling as you release into that lower spine. And then just come to allow those arms to hang heavy, ragdolling the arms towards the mat. So from here on your next inhale, let's walk forwards into our high plank position. Make sure you're not wiggling the hips too much. So just coming forwards into that strong high plank, hands are directly under the shoulders here, the gaze is down, find length into the back body. Draw in the tummy muscles, engaging into the glutes. Again, do spread and open into the fingertips, so finding that strong connection through the hands onto the mat. Now on your next exhale, release the knees down. Draw the elbows into the waist and lower through chest and chin towards the mat, so finding this micro back extension. And then come to release all the way down onto your tummy, hands either side of the chest. Pressing to the tops of the feet, so firm up through the leg muscles. On your next inhale, loop the shoulders back, lift the chest, find your cobra, elbows are drawn in towards the waist. Exhale, release all the way down. Let's take this 2 more times. So inhaling, we lift, we loop the shoulders back, open into the heart space, elbows are into the side. Exhaling, releasing down. 1 more time, inhale to lift. Now exhale to tuck the toes under, lift the hips straight up into that downward facing dog. And just holding for a moment in downward facing, so check in with that alignment again. All those points of the pose, the hips are high here, so find this strong inverted V-shaped position. And again, do just soften into the knees should you feel you need to. Now on your next inhale, this time let's send the gaze forwards. Start to tiptoe the feet in towards the hands at the front of the mat, but try to keep the hips as high as you possibly can, so maybe even coming onto fingertips to allow you to do so. And then when you make your way towards the hands, you can then exhale to release the heels down, release the arms down. Again, come to find a forward fold. Now this time in your fold, bend into the knees generously. So you can bring the hands behind the back of the legs, taking hold of opposite elbow pads. So finding this hug of the elbows behind. And then really seeing if you can descend the chest towards the legs, towards the knees as much as possible. So it's like you're rounding into a ball here in this fold. Let that head completely hang. Make sure there's weight into the heels, the forefoot and the toes, so even weight distribution through the feet. Just taking 1 more breath here, so inhaling deeply, exhaling fully, release the arms down, and then slowly peel yourself up into a standing position, 1 vertebra at a time. So really slow and controlled, stacking up the spine. Moving a little bit slower than you'd like to. Notice the tummy muscles working, the glutes engage as you come a little bit taller into that standing position. And just making sure that you're at the front of your mat here. So we're going to add in some sun salutations, but with a few variations as we go. Nice and simple to begin, and then we'll start to make it a little bit more complex with every one that we take. So just make sure you're into Tadasana here, your mountain pose, so options to have the feet parted or maybe have the feet together so toes meet the heels are slightly parted. Find that evenness, that stability through the feet. So again, equal weight distribution here as the feet root down towards the mat. Tuck the tailbone under slightly, so neutralize into the lower spine. Tummy muscles are engaged, glutes are engaged, and also feel this sense of uplift through the legs, this strength into the leg muscles here as they support you. Draw the shoulders back to feel that openness spread across the collarbone, so opening into your heart center. Palms direct forwards, and you can really stretch into the fingertips, so send that energy all the way to the hands. Inhaling deeply. Exhale, hands float to heart center into your prayer Namaskar-asana. Inhale, sweep the arms overhead, maybe bringing palms together, introducing a gentle back bend. And then exhale to forward fold from the waist, releasing the hands to the ground or taking hold of the ankles. The gaze is behind, bend into the knees as you need. On your next inhale, firm up through the legs, hands come to the shins, straightening out the knees for halfway lift, tuck the shoulders back, gaze is forwards. Exhale, release the hands towards the ground, keep the left foot where it is, and step your right leg back behind you. So coming to find this strong runner's lunge. Now keep your right knee lifted here, and just make sure the left knee is in line with the ankle. Come onto fingertips, send the shoulders back and lift the chest. So really finding this extension through the back of the spine here, this active lift of the chest away from the knee. Inhaling here. And then exhale to step straight back into a high plank position. So coming to find your strong high plank. Now on an exhale, either choosing to release the knees or maybe just drawing the elbows into the waist to lower to the mat with control. Release the feet. Inhale, loop the shoulders back, lift the chest, finding your cobra, whichever height you want to take. Exhale, tuck the toes under and lift the hips into your downward facing dog. Just holding for a couple of breaths here in downward facing dog then, so just checking in with that alignment of the pose. Make sure you can really notice that strength into the hands, the strength into the shoulders as they support you. Let the head relax, that gaze is behind, softening the knees if you need. Feel that strong release into the lower spine and into the backs of the legs. Now on your next inhale, bend the knees softly, send the gaze forwards. Exhale, step your right foot on the inside of the right hand as you come to find your long lunge, your runner's lunge on this side. So right knee in line with the ankles, coming onto fingertips. And again, draw the shoulders back to lift the chest forwards and the gaze is forward. So finding that active extension of the back. Inhaling here. Exhale, step that left foot now to the front, coming to land in a fold at the front of your mat. On your next inhale, hands come to the shins, straighten the legs for your halfway lift, the gaze is forwards. Exhale, release the hands down, coming all the way into your forward fold, gaze is behind Uttanasana. Inhale, sweep the arms out to the side, all the way overhead, maybe welcoming in a back bend should you wish to. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Now from here on your next inhale, come straight to take those arms all the way overhead, again bringing palms together, finding your back bend as you wish to. On an exhale, forward fold at the waist, coming all the way down towards the mat. The gaze can be behind, hands to the ground or the ankles. Inhale, halfway lift, hands to the shins, look forwards, extending the spine, flat back position. Exhale, release the hands down, keep the right foot where it is, step your left leg back into your strong runner's lunge. Coming onto the fingertips, again, tuck the shoulders back, send the gaze forward, so really feeling that active lift of the chest here. Now on your next exhale, step back into your high plank position, finding that strong high plank. And then releasing towards the ground, so elbows into the waist. Now if you want to come into up dog here on your inhale, you can do. Lifting the hips, extending through the elbows, sending the gaze up. Really press onto the tops of the feet. And then as you exhale, you can lift all the way back into downward facing dog. Again, just pausing in downward dog for a couple of rounds of breath. Make sure the hips are lifted high here. Inverted V-shaped position. Notice some strength into the core. So just see if you're drawing in those tummy muscles slightly. Quite often we just allow them to completely relax. But do try to have that active lift of the tummy muscles in towards the spine as you can. Now on your next inhale, bend the knees and send the gaze forwards. Exhaling now to step the left foot forwards onto the inside of the left hand, finding your strong runner's lunge. Tuck the shoulders back, again send that chest forwards. Really feeling that active extension of the back, gaze is lifted. Inhaling here on your next exhale, step that right foot forwards to land into your forward fold. Inhale, hands to the shins, firm up through the legs, the gaze is forwards, halfway lift. Exhale, release all the way down into your fold. So release the head, the gaze is behind, bend into the knees if you need. Now this time on an inhale, we're going to transition into chair pose. So bend the knees, send the hips back and lift the arms high towards the ceiling. So coming into chair Uttanasana. Make sure the weight is through the heels here. Now if your feet are parted, just check in that the knees aren't collapsing inwards. So again, just as in bridge, we want to make sure the knees are pointed directly forwards. Sink the hips down, but make sure again that you're not actively sort of arching into the back. So soften into the ribcage, draw in the tummy muscle slightly, and then really stretch and open into your fingertips here, nice. So inhaling here, exhale, relax all the way down into that forward fold again. On your next inhale, straighten through the legs, halfway lift, send the gaze forwards, tuck the shoulders back. Exhale, release the hands down, keep the left foot where it is, and step your right leg back behind you. Again, come to find your runner's lunge. So onto the fingertips, lifting chest forwards and squeezing those shoulders together. Now find your strength and stability in this pose. Whenever you feel ready to on an inhale, see if you can take the arms all the way up overhead and exhale to sink the hips down into your high crescent lunge. Now make sure left knee is still in line with the ankle here. You can really press into the undersurface of the right toes. Stretch into the fingertips, so really send that energy all the way up to the hands. Soften the ribcage, tuck in the tummy slightly, and just check in that the pelvis is level, that it feels in line. Take an inhale here. Exhale, release the hands down to mirror the front foot coming onto fingertips. And now see from here if you can start to walk the hands back as you straighten into the front leg. So coming into your pyramid pose, we're straightening that front knee out. The gaze is down, and we're just seeing if we can also seal that back heel down towards the ground. Now try to find some active lift in the chest, just as we did in runner's lunge. So we're not completely rounding into this pose. We want to lift the shoulders back. Send the gaze towards the big toe here as we look directly below, and just notice those shoulder blades just coming together slightly. Really good. Now a little bit of a challenge from here, a bit of a challenging transition we're going to see about coming into our triangle pose. So you might want to shorten this stance slightly by bringing that back heel in towards you. The feet want to be about 2.5 shoulder widths apart. The heels are directly in line and your back foot is just out at a slight angle. Now from here, can you bring your left hand onto your lower shin? And then as you inhale, see if you can sweep your right arm up towards the ceiling, coming into your triangle trikonasana. Do adjust your feet as you need to. You can soften into that front leg if you need as well. Now you can ground that left hand down onto the shin, or you might see about hovering left hand away from the shin slightly. So you're really using that strength into the side body to keep you lifted. The gaze is up towards the top hand. Okay, take an inhale to look down, bend into the front knee, exhale, bring both hands down to mirror the front foot. Just come back into your runner's lunge. Ground the right hand down. On an inhale, sweep the left arm up towards the ceiling, coming to find a twist. Really stretch and open into the fingertips. Exhale, release that left hand down to mirror the front foot. Step back into your high plank position. Really good. Exhaling either to release the knees or draw the elbows into the waist. You might take a hover away from the ground here. And inhale as you come into your up dog or cobra, your choice of back bend. And then exhaling, making your way into downward facing dog. So just using that down dog to collect the breath, to release into the back, to release into the backs of the legs. Pausing for a moment, finding some stillness here. On your next inhale then, let's bend the knees and send the gaze forwards. This time exhaling to step that right foot on the inside of the right hand. So big step forwards with the right foot, finding your long lunge on this side, your runner's lunge. Lift the chest, draw the shoulders back, coming onto the fingertips. Now find some stability here for a moment when you feel ready to on your inhale. Let's see about floating the arms up overhead and exhaling to find your way into that high crescent lunge. Now from there, just relax the hips down slightly. So notice if you're still quite lifted here, then soften the hips down, make sure you're even through the pelvis, the tailbone tethers towards the ground. Stretch into the fingertips. Really sending that energy, energizing into the hands, into the fingers. Now, as you exhale, release the hands down to mirror that front foot coming onto the fingertips. And again, we're going to walk the hands back to straighten into that lead leg. So just lengthening into the back of the hamstring on that right side. Still make sure you're not collapsing the chest here, so the active lift of the back away from the leg. We're not relaxing or sort of hovering that chest towards the knee. We're lifting the chest. The shoulder blades slightly draw together and the gaze is down towards the big toe. Now from here, make any adjustments that you need to before we come into triangle trikonasana. So if you need to slightly walk that back foot in to shorten the stance, do so. Make sure the heels are in line. That back foot is pointing out slightly at an angle towards that corner edge of the mat. Now from here, the right hand comes onto the lower shin. As you inhale, we see about sweeping that left arm up towards the ceiling to land into our triangle trikonasana. Really stretch top hand up towards the ceiling. The gaze is lifted. Option to ground down onto that lower leg, or maybe see about just hovering your right hand away from the lower shin. Pausing for a moment here, from that strength into the side body. So this is a really good one to work into the obliques, the muscles that support the side of the trunk. On your next inhale, look down. Exhale, bend that front knee, come back into your runner's lunge. So release those hands to mirror the front foot. Left hand is grounded. Inhale, let's sweep right arm up towards the ceiling, taking a lunge twist. Gaze is lifted. Exhale, release the right hand down, step that left foot up towards the front, landing into a forward fold. Inhale, hands to shins, halfway lift, look forwards, tuck the shoulders back. Exhale, release all the way down into your fold. Inhale, sit back into your chair, so bend into the knees, lift the arms up, sinking into that chair pose, Uttanasana, really strong into the tummy muscles here as well, so draw the tummy muscles in, even up through the pelvis, stretch into the fingers and soften the rib cage. Inhaling deeply. Exhale, release all the way back down into your forward fold. Inhale, hands to the shins, halfway lift, look forwards, tuck the shoulders back. Exhale, release the hands down, keep the right foot where it is, step your left leg back. So finding that long runner's lunge on the right side this time. Wonderful. So just working on that alignment in your runner's lunge here, tucking the shoulders back, lifting the chest. Now again, as you feel ready to on an inhale, let's sweep the arms overhead and exhale to sink the hips down as you find your high lunge, your crescent lunge. Just work on that alignment here. Really notice that strength into that front leg, the knee is in line with the ankle. You're rooting down strongly into that front foot. Take an inhale here. Exhale, release the hands to mirror the front foot. Walk the hands back to straighten through that lead leg. So again, coming into this pyramid pose. Feeling that length into the back of the hamstring. Again, the chest is lifted here, shoulders tucked together, gazes down towards the toe. Seal the back heel down as much as you can. And also just check in here that the hips are in line. So if you notice, sometimes we kind of lift that left hip back slightly. Try to sink it forward so there's evenness through the pelvis. Now again, make any transitions, any sort of little modifications here you need to before you come into your triangle pose. So you might want to just draw that back heel in slightly, adjusting the position of the stance. And then as you feel ready to bring the right hand onto the right shin. Inhaling, sweeping that left arm up overhead, coming into your triangle pose, Trikonasana. Again, options here, if you wish to, you can hover that right hand away from the low leg. So using that spinal strength to keep you lifted, the gaze is up. Pausing for a moment, using your breath to maintain that focus, inhaling deeply, exhaling fully. Now on your next inhale, look down. Exhale to bend the front knee, bring the arms in line with the shoulders, so landing into warrior two this time, Virabhadrasana B, just adding on a little bit more into this flow. Make sure again, right knee is in line with the ankle, really seal down through the outer edge of that back foot. Firm up through the arms, but make sure you're not lifting or tensing the shoulders up towards the ears, so really soften those shoulder blades down. Now on your next inhale, flip your right hand up towards the ceiling, lead hand up towards the ceiling. Exhale, reverse your warrior, so left hand to the back leg, the right arm lifts up and over, finding your reverse warrior here. The gaze is lifted. So this is a really nice one for opening into the side of the trunk. Make sure you're not heavily grounding your left hand onto the back leg, so really soft grip, soft placement of that left hand now onto the back leg. Or if you wish to, you can even bring left hand behind the back. Or maybe see if you can tuck your left hand into the top of the right hip as it comes all the way around to find a half bind into this pose. Still bending into the front knee. Now take an inhale here. As you exhale, see if you can dive your right elbow just above the right knee. The left arm comes all the way up and over into your extended side angle pose. So left arm lifts. We're stretching it overhead. The gaze is lifted up this time. And we're not just hanging out into that front leg. So again, find this active lift of the chest here. Pausing for a moment, finding some strength into this pose. And if you wish to, you can play around with releasing right hand onto the inside of the ankle, perhaps see how that feels. But just make sure you're not collapsing the chest down. So really finding that rotation still into the upper arm, into the shoulder. Take one last breath here, so inhaling deeply. And then as you exhale, bring your left hand down on the inside of the front foot. Come onto the toes on that left side into your long lunge position, and then see about lifting right arm up towards the ceiling so we're coming back into that lunge twist position. Wonderful. Option to stay here, or if you want to add some strength into your practice this evening, then you can always see about stepping the right foot back towards the left, coming into a full side plank position. That is optional. You don't have to go there, but if you wish to, finding that side plank, or maybe a supported side plank, the left knee comes down towards the mat. Really good for strengthening into that side body. Gaze is lifted. Pausing for a moment here, inhaling deeply, exhaling fully. Wherever you are, stepping into your high plank position, so coming now through your high plank. Taking a vinyasa, so exhaling, elbows into the waist, lower through chaturanga. Inhaling either into cobra or coming into your up dog, your choice. And then exhaling, we meet in downward facing dog. Wonderful, just take a moment there in that downward facing. So release into the hamstrings, release into the lower spine. It might be now that we've done so much hamstring release that you can try to send your heels a little bit further down towards the mat. But again, just notice if you're rounding into that lower spine. Try to elongate and extend through the back body. On your next inhale, bend the knees generously, send the gaze forwards. Exhale, step that left foot forwards now on the inside of the left hand. So coming to find that long lunge position, your runner's lunge. Okay, so just as we did before, whenever you feel ready, when you've got your strength and stability here, you can see about inhaling to float the arms up and exhaling to release the hips into this pose, crescent lunge. Stretch into the fingertips. Really seal down the toes of that back foot, the forefoot, just really feeling that connection through the back leg, that strength through the back leg. Take a moment here, inhaling deeply. As you exhale, release the hands down to mirror the front foot. Coming onto fingertips, walking the hands back, straightening through that front leg. So finding pyramid pose on this side, lengthening into the back of the leg. Again, focusing on releasing the hamstring. Chest is lifted, that gaze is down. The crown of the head sort of lifts forwards here, so finding that elongation through the spine still. Now from here, make any adjustments you need to as we come into our triangle pose, so you might want to, again, just shorten off the stance slightly, should you need. And then when you feel ready, you can ground the left hand onto the left shin. Inhale to sweep that right arm up towards the ceiling, finding your triangle trikonasana. Maybe think about hovering left hand away from the lower leg, using that spinal strength to lift you if that feels okay to do so. Feeling that strength into the side of the waist here, into the side body. Gaze is still lifted. Inhale to look down. Exhale, bend the front knee, come into warrior two, Virabhadrasana V. Really stretch the arms away here. So almost imagine you've got these two forces that are pulling the arms in opposite directions. So feeling that strength through the arms. Relaxing the shoulders if they're bunching towards the ears, and really sealing down through that back foot. Now on your next inhale, flip left hand up towards the ceiling. Exhale, reverse the warrior, so left arm up and over, the right hand comes to the back leg. Gaze is still lifted here, we're not just hanging out into that back leg. So really soft planting of that hand here onto the right leg, or maybe think about bringing that hand behind the back, maybe even looping right hand onto the top of that left leg if it's available for you, finding this half bind position, still bend into that front knee. Good. Now inhale here. As you exhale, release left elbow just above the left knee. Right arm comes all the way up and over into that extended side angle pose. Notice that length all the way down through the right side of the body. Stretch open into the fingertips. Gaze is still lifted here. If you wish to see about bringing left hand onto the inside of the ankle, you can do. See how that goes. But you don't have to challenge yourself, it is optional. Most important thing is we're finding that really long line from the hip all the way to the hand, arm overhead, stretching forwards here. Still sealing and rooting through the back foot. So notice that strength into the back leg as well as the front leg supporting you. Now whenever you're ready to, on your exhale, loop that right hand round so it lands onto the inside of the left foot. Coming onto the toes on the right side and then inhaling, lifting left arm up towards the ceiling, so finding your lunge twist position. Either choosing to stay here, or maybe you step that left foot back to the right to come into that full side plank variation. If you are in side plank, make sure the hips are lifted, so feeling that strength through the side body again. Option to release right knee down for a supported variation of the pose should you wish. Wherever you are, take one last breath, full inhale, long exhale. And then transition yourself into that high plank position again. So strong high plank onto the mat. Exhaling, moving through chaturanga, inhaling into up dog or cobra, your choice of back bend. Just check that the shoulders are away from the ears still. And then exhale to find your downward facing dog. Okay, so just come to hold your downward facing dog here for a moment. Just a few more breaths here, finding that stillness in this pose. Release into the backs of the legs, opening into the fingertips. This is the last time in our downward dog here, so really feeling that nourishing stretch, that strong release. Let's take one last inhale. Now as you exhale, release the knees down. Allow the toes to come together and come all the way into your child's pose, Balasana. Forehead can rest onto the mat, bowing the chest forwards, really opening and stretching into the fingertips. Feel that stronger release into the shoulders, into the arms. Heaviness in the hips here. Just taking a moment to breathe. Okay. One last inhale. And then as you exhale, just come into a kneeling position at the back of your mat. All right. So we're just going to have a little bit of fun this evening again. Now that we're nice and released into the hamstrings, and now that we started to engage into the core, we are going to either have a practice at the first initial setup for headstand, or if you don't want to do that, we're just going to work on our dolphin pose. To begin with, we'll all come into a dolphin pose anyway, just so you can see how that feels, and it's a really good way to strengthen into the shoulders and into the upper body. So from here, let's actually all come down into a Sphinx pose on the mat. So first setup, let's come onto a Sphinx pose. So the elbows are under the shoulders, so the forearms are down, and we're opening and spreading into the fingertips. Now, just make sure you're pressing the tops of the feet into the ground, and in doing so, the kneecaps lift away from the mat, so you can really feel that aliveness, that firming up through the leg muscles, strong into the glutes. Press into the elbows here. So what I just want you to get used to here is this pressing down of the elbows into the ground. And as you do so, notice that the shoulder blades come together slightly. You can feel that really sort of firming up through the muscles on the inside of the shoulders. So really strong into the upper back here. And the gaze is towards just getting used to this position to begin with. Now, from your Sphinx, tuck the toes under here. And then on an inhale, just see about lifting the knees away from the ground. So firstly, coming into a low plank position. Now, next step from here, from your low plank, we're just going to see if we can walk the feet in towards us to come into a forearm dog or a dolphin pose. So the hips are lifted, the gaze is behind as we come into this dolphin pose or forearm dog. Now, if you can, try to hold for a couple of breaths here. Don't worry about getting the heels down, but make sure the hips are high. And again, still keep pressing into the elbows to notice that strength and activation between the shoulders. The gaze is behind. So maybe just pausing for one more breath here. So long inhale, full exhale. Whenever you're ready to release, drop the knees, untuck the toes, come into a child's pose for a moment. And then again, just come to relax into a kneeling position at the back of the mat. Okay, so option number one is just to practice that dolphin pose, but maybe trying to hold it for a little bit longer and see how that goes. Just making sure you've really got that strong activation through the shoulders. Now, option number two is to do similar, but working on a headstand support sort of position. So if you want to work on that, and I'll just demonstrate to begin with, from here you can just bring your forearms down towards the mat and just make sure that the elbows really are shoulder distance here, so they're directly under the shoulders. You can always bend the elbows, make sure you can hold onto the opposite elbow with the opposite hand, and that sort of gives you a rough guide that you're in a really good position. Now from here, bring the hands out in front. Now interlace the fingers to form a cup into the back of the hands, and that cup is going to be there to accept the back of the head. So from here, you can see about bringing the back of the head into the hands. Now, before you go anywhere here, press into the elbows to notice that activation between the shoulders. First stage, just like a dolphin, you're going to tuck the toes under, lift the hips, and see if you can walk those feet towards you. So this is just the first initial step of your headstand, is just coming into this position, cupping the head into the hands, lifting the hips, And it's really important to have good flexibility into the hamstrings because it will allow you to get your back into a really nice straight position so you're not rounding into the lower spine. So that's the initial step. So just accepting head into the hands, making sure you're pressing into the elbows, you're lifting the hips and you're walking the feet in towards you. If anyone wants to take it one stage further today, you can always see about bending a knee or lifting one foot up away from the ground, see how that feels. If you want to, you can have a go at lifting one foot up, bringing the other knee to meet it and just coming into this sort of tucked position here and seeing how that feels. That's the next stage, is just really sort of getting into this tucked position with both knees lifted. So that's really just what we're working on today. Don't worry, I mean, if you have it in your practice, you can come into lifting the legs. But if you're not, then just get used to being in that position where the hips are lifted. We're accepting the head into the back of the hands. So this is stage number one. But again, if you want to, you can maybe see about lifting one foot, lifting the other, or maybe seeing if you can tuck both feet out here to come into a sort of tucked position in supporting the head. So that's what we're working towards just to begin with. And that's kind of enough to practice on to begin with. It's making sure you've got that strength into the shoulders, you're pressing into the elbows, and you're really active between the shoulder blades. That's the initial point. And that's why dolphin is a really good one to, oh, nice, Mike. Awesome. So that's why dolphin is just a really good place to start because it gives you that strength into the shoulders to begin with. So that might just be something you play around with this week, and then we can progress on it a little bit more in weeks to come. Brilliant though, that's looking good. Nice. So the hamstring lengthening is a really important one because that's what makes sure that your back is in that straightened position. Awesome. Okay, good. So maybe just have one last second to play around with it if you wish to. Whenever you've had enough, we're going to meet in a child's pose. So whenever you're done, you can just start to come into that long child's pose again, releasing that head down onto the mat. And just taking a moment to release into the spine. So after doing any sort of inversion headstand movements, it's really good to find a grounding posture where you're then bringing yourself back down to the earth. So this is a nice one coming into that child's pose after you've done any movements where you're kind of lifting the hips high and where you're bringing those hips higher than the heart. So just softening that heart space down again, finding this calming and grounding posture. Okay, so lastly here then, let's inhale to look forwards, exhale, come into a seated position at the top of your mat. Just to finish off with, before we come down to the mat, we're just going to take one last round of boat pose. So this is also a really important posture when it comes to working on any sort of headstands or inversions, because again, you want to find that really good position of the upper body, but we're trying to strengthen into the core at the same time. So just have the knees bent, the soles of the feet resting flat. Bring the hands just beside the hips or just behind, fingertips are facing forwards, and just grounding through those hands behind you. Now start by lifting the chest away from the hips, so find that length and elongation through the spine. And then maybe from here, just seeing if you can lift one foot up, maybe lifting the other one, maybe practicing on this, or it might be that you can lift both feet up together. So again, adopting that boat pose position. Now just check here today that you're not sinking that back, sort of you're rounding into the back. So really draw the chest forwards, lift into the trunk. And then if you wish to here, you can squeeze the legs together to notice a little bit more engagement into the deeper core. Again, maybe hovering those arms in line with the shoulders, lifting the chest. Find that stability, find that strength. As we did before, let's inhale to lift those arms overhead, so really opening through the spine. Exhale, releasing arms in line with the shoulders, maybe taking that 2 more times in your own time. So inhaling to lift. Exhaling, releasing the arms down one last time. Wonderful, really good. Release the feet and then come all the way down onto your mat. Hug those knees in towards you. And just take a moment there to release into the lower spine. So we've done lots of mobility work this evening. So although we've had that strengthening component, it should feel as though everything feels sort of relatively loose and relaxed. But if there's any area of the body that still feels a little bit tight, then I'm just going to give you an opportunity here to release that in your own time, in your own way. So if there's any last posture that you feel you need to do this evening, then just adopting that posture now in your own time. So whatever it may be, it might be that you want to find a twist, another bridge. You might want to just come to find a sort of release into the glutes, or a stretch into hamstrings, or lengthen arms, legs, waist, or whatever feels good for you. Just take a moment there to find that last stretch in your own way, in your own time, that last posture, whatever you feel you need to do. Okay. And take your time, but as and when you feel ready, we're going to make our way into our final relaxation, our Shavasana. So just coming into lying here. And as we began, adopting any shape on the mat that really serves you. So whether you want to have the legs out long, you might want to bend the knees, you might want to allow the knees to fall out to the side. Hands either resting by your side or onto the tummy. Closing down the eyes. Shutting out the extrinsic world. Bringing your awareness back to the body. Relax the shoulders, let them be heavy. Feel that release of the lower back. Length through the back of the neck, relax the facial muscles. So really feeling this softness, this surrender of the body onto the mat. And if you still feel that you're carrying any tension this evening, just become aware of that part of the body. And with every exhale, really direct the breath there, using it to calm and ground you, to release any existing tension. And then just taking a few last moments of silence and stillness here in Shavasana. Staying mindful of the breath, staying mindful of the body. So notice if your attention is drifting, then just try to bring it back to the breath, back to the body. So finding that internal awareness again. Taking a couple more breaths here. And start to wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes. Again, bring some energy, some life back into the body. And in your own time, bending the knees, feet are resting flat onto the ground. Take a roll onto one side, either side, just taking a moment there, finding that really comforting fetal type shape. And then slowly coming all the way up into cross-legged. Take your time meeting there whenever you're ready to. Meeting with hands in heart center. So just finding your prayer Anjali Mudra, your gesture of gratitude. One last inhale here, exhale, allow any tension to go, let those shoulders just rest away from the ears. Bow the chin towards the chest, showing gratitude for your practice. The light in me honors the light that shines in you. bowing forwards. Namaste. Thank you very much for joining me.